Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to explain how I built my keyboard collection of 65 keyboards. When I was 15, I had one keyboard. It was a Farfisa organ that cost £100. As time went on, I bought an Elka Rhapsody and then a Honor Pianet T. Honor Pianet T is like electric piano, horrible thing. Anyway, I was just trundling along, not really going anywhere, and then suddenly I went to see a band called SFX, which was a kind of a jazz rock band, and they were awesome sounding, and there was a keyboard player called Richard Cottle, who I started chatting to, and I said to him, wow, this is amazing. Is this how you make your living? Well, he laughed and he said, no, I make my living playing sessions. When he revealed how much he was earning, I was like, wow, this is what I want to do for a living. At this point, I was about 15 years old, and I'd been playing the piano since 9, and I was playing concerts in front of the school, but really just, it was a hobby, which I really enjoyed. But suddenly, I could see a way of making a living. So when I was 16 years old, I left school. I got a job in Lloyds Bank. And then when I was 17, I got a driving license, and straight away I got into a working band. I was earning double money from Lloyds and money from the gigs. So I was saving quite a bit of money. Then I started to buy keyboards. The first keyboard I bought was a Fender Rhodes. Then I bought a Minimoog. And then later I bought a Prophet 5. At this time I was playing in a band called Push, who had a record deal with Red Bus Records. They were being coached by Candidate, and the keyboard player, T. Morris, was coaching me, and he did a brilliant job, and he's just explaining how to gig in front of audiences and all the rest of it. And then I gave Richard Cottle a call, and I said, look, I've got a keyboard set up now. Any sessions you can't do, any chance you can put them my way. Well, back in the mid-80s, there was literally a shortage of keyboard players because all these bands like Human League and Depeche Mode had started up, and they were all using keyboard players, and there was a shortage of keyboard players because previously keyboards had been very untrendy and not many people had learned how to play them. Exaggerating to make a point, obviously. Anyway, this session was for Ronnie Harwood. He's the guy that wrote You Drive Me Crazy for Shakin Stevens. That went really well, got £100. I was ecstatic. Then the other gig was playing for Chris Sutton in his band. He was signed to Polydor Records, and we had Winston Blissett on bass, Maurice Michaels on guitar, and Bernie Michaels on vocals, and there were other musicians as well, Chris Blackwell on drums. So that was a super band at the time, and I was really honoured to be in that band, to be amongst all these established session musicians. That went really well. That led on to a Bucks Fizz tour where I was away for about 4 months. The income was just increasing gradually. And then after I came off the tour, that was at end of December, January, I was completely unemployed. So I thought, wow, what do I do now? So I bought the Showcase directory, and that had 500 management agencies in. Phoned them all up, and I sent them all a CV, and I got one positive reply from one management company. They were looking for a keyboard player for their signed artist, Terence Trent, who was signed to CBS Records. So I went to the audition, and straight away Terence was like kind of really on my case, and he was like, I know all about you and I'm not impressed. And I was like, oh, okay. To be honest, it kind of got my back up. So then I set up my keyboards. At this point I had an Ensoniq Mirage, Prophet 5 and a DX7. So I started playing keyboards. So they were just jamming a song, and I just jammed along. And then suddenly I could hear Terence shouting at me, and I was like, yeah. He said, organ. I said, what? He said, organ, play organ. I was like, oh, okay. So put up an organ sound, started playing organ. That all went really well. Then he goes, piano. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I started playing the piano. I did 3 songs, and it continued in this fashion. And then they started doing the 4th song, and I thought, I've had enough of this. So I started packing up my keyboards. And Terence said, oh, what are you doing? And I said, I'm packing up and going home. He goes, well, I haven't finished the audition. I said, well, you've seen what I can do. You either want me or you don't. I said, you got my details, catch you later. So a week later, I got the call from the management company. Terence wants you in the band. I thought, okay. I obviously charmed him. So that was an unusual way to get a job. Got a selection of keyboards now. I bought a Honor D6, and then I sold it, and that was a big mistake. I really regretted that. Then I sold my Ensoniq Mirage as well, with the whole sound library. That's definitely one of my biggest regrets ever. After that, I decided that any keyboards that I like the sound of, doesn't matter if they go out of fashion, I'm not going to sell them. So I continued on. I bought an Xpander, a Roland Super Duper, and I bought all these at full price. I was doing TV sessions. I was doing sessions at Abbey Road, Rack Studios, Olympic. I was playing with Eternal, Danny Minogue, Billy, 911. Bad Boys Inc. And I played on a lot of hit records. Around about this time, 92, 93, analog keyboards just went completely out of fashion. Nobody wanted to touch them. So I continued to buy the digital keyboards, but then I suddenly saw the prices of keyboards just dropping. I saw Profit 5 for 500 quid. This is a keyboard that used to cost 2.5 grand. That's 14 grand in today's money. Now it's going for 500 quid. And I thought, oh, this is a good time to buy some of these old keyboards. So what I would do on a Friday, I would buy a lute and a melody maker, and I'd literally just circle all the equipment that I wanted and then phone everyone up, and then in the afternoon I'd go out and pick up all these keyboards. Now during this time I bought an ARP Odyssey, a Logan string machine, a Roland SH101, MC202 made by Roland. I also got a Wurlitzer 200A from the keyboard player from 10cc. I paid £220 for that. Today they're worth £5,000. Bargain. TX816, the rack of 8 DX7s, a Les Paul guitar, 1986, wonderful guitar, and a Fender Twin Reverb. I also got some incredible bargains. I got a Oberheim OB8 for 600 quid, Profit VS for £600, a Roland Rhythm Machine TR66 for £10, and the biggest bargain was the EMS Synthi AKS, which I got for £1,500. I received a call from Reese, who was a drummer, and he said, look, I've got this Synthi AKS that's been given to me from a school. I've been offered £1,000 from a music shop. You know, what do you think? Do you think you should take it? So I said, well, I'll give you £1,500 for it if you want. He said, wow, yeah, brilliant, okay. So I drew out the cash, zipped down there, bought the synth, and it's in immaculate condition. At the time, they were going for 4.5 grand. Today, they're going for 20 grand. So that was a great deal. Later on, I was doing an album with Guy Barker. He's a famous trumpet player, and he hired in a Hammond C3 for the session. I was blown away with the sound. I thought, I've got to get one of those. Bought a lute. There was a Hammond C3 for sale, £1,550. So I phoned him. I said, look, I want your C3. Will you take 1,200 quid for it? And he says, oh, I have to have a think about it. I said, well, it doesn't work like that. He said, what do you mean it doesn't work like that? And I said, look, you make me an offer, and then I say yes or no. So then he said, all right, 1,250. And I was like, oh, goodness me, that's better than my wildest dreams. So I didn't want to act too keen. So I said, just hang on a second. I put him on hold for about a minute. And then I came back and said, yeah, I'm going to take it. I zipped up to Coventry the next day and picked up this Hammond C3. Even now, I'm still buying synths. Recently, I bought a Jupiter 4, a Yamaha CS40M, and a 1978 Fender Precision bass, which is just the best sounding bass guitar I've ever heard. I have got a few regrets. I was offered a Jupiter 8 for £2,000. I turned it down. I thought it was too expensive. Then it went up to £4,000. Then it went up to £7,000. Then it went up to £12,000. And then it went up to 20 grand. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to miss out if I don't get this soon. So I went and bought the Jupiter 8 at the full market price. And to be honest, I haven't seen it go up in price much since I bought it. But still, it's a fantastic synth, a synth I should have had 30 years ago in my session days. Same with the Yamaha CS80. I could afford one of those, but I was advised that a chip went on it, it cost a mortgage to replace, so I just avoided them like the plague. And then I was working with one of these synth repair guys, and he was saying, Kent Spong, if he fixes the CS80, it will stay reliable. I bought one. I got at the top of the market price as well. That's given me so much enjoyment. You know, I've got it now. I'm still buying the modern equipment during the whole time, and that's works seamlessly with my old analog stuff. But my analog stuff, it was kind of idle for 30 years. I was using it, but none of my clients wanted it, none of my engineers were using it. But in the last 5 years, it's really come back in vogue and people are really using it again. I have a wish list. All the keyboards that I'm interested in buying, they got to be vintage. I'm not interested in reissues. I bought a reissue of the ARP 2600, which was a TTCH mini, and it's a great sounding synth, but I don't know. In the back of my mind, I know it's not the real thing. It doesn't excite me the way my old analog keyboards excite me. The one exception is the Minimoog reissue. The synths I would like to get, and if they come up at the right price, I'm definitely interested in buying them, is a Moog Model 15, Polyfusion System 2000, Moog 55, that's got to be number one, Roland System 700, ARP 2600, Analog Solutions Colossus. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I want you to check out my 94%, my latest 94% quiz. Check out my CS80 videos, and I've done a top 11 most expensive synths, which is a video that's coming up to 40,000 views. Definitely worth checking out. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.